or fly fishing, which I did as much as I wanted to, as possible, I always remember that in the back of my mind was that concern of encountering a bear, especially getting between a mother bear and her cubs. And as I move to Ontario now, especially as I go hiking around here, I have to remind myself once again, I'm not in the mountains anymore, and that fear. But if all of us could actually have in our lives that fear of going the wrong way, of listening to the voice of folly, and being afraid and crying out to God, please give me your wisdom to go the right way. Just like we would have that fear of encountering a mother bear in between the cubs. I think that would be a good, what we call a healthy fear in life to have. One of my favorite movie scenes of all time comes from near the end of the movie, Dances with Wolves. During the movie, a U.S. Union soldier near the end of the U.S. Civil War befriends the Sioux Native Americans, eventually becoming a part of their tribe. The U.S. soldiers eventually come to view the main character, Lieutenant John Dunbar, as a traitor, and they pursue him at all costs. John Dunbar fears for the life of the Sioux people, so he decides to leave the camp of the Sioux to protect them. The people of the tribe are very upset that John Dunbar, known to them as Dances with Wolves, is leaving them. One of them, a fierce warrior and dear friend of Dances with Wolves, Wind in his hair, struggles to express his love and friendship to Dances with Wolves until Dances with Wolves and his wife are leaving the camp. Wind in his hair climbs to the highest point of the camp, a rock overhang, sits on his horse, raises his warrior's weapon above his head, and shouts out in a loud cry of his heart, "Dances with Wolves! I am Wind in his hair. Do you see that I am your friend? Can you see that you will always be my friend? Dances with Wolves. I am Wind in his hair. Do you see that I am your friend? Can you see that you will always be my friend?" Over and over, with tears in his eyes, the loud cry of Wind in his hair is heard by all the tribe as Dances with Wolves and his wife leave the camp. In Proverbs 9, there are two voices crying from the highest point of the city, wisdom and folly. Both wisdom and folly are calling out, competing for the simple, impressionable youth to heed their invitation to a banquet. Wisdom cries out to come and feast on the meal I have prepared for you. Folly as well invites those heeding to the call of wisdom to come and feast on stolen food and enjoy a secret meal alone with folly. I remember when I had to do my psychiatric evaluation for becoming an ordained minister. One of the questions that was asked repeatedly on the test was whether I heard voices in my head. I remember thinking to myself, if they ask that question another time, I think I will start to hear voices inside of me. We live, though, in a world where many voices are competing for our attention. Voices each promising a meal of happiness, career fulfillment, healthy living, wealth, recreation, positive thinking, advanced education, social initiative, simple ecological friendly living, sexual fulfillment are just a few of the many voices competing for our hearts. How are we going to know which voice to listen to in life? Proverbs 9 helps us as it distinguishes between the voice of wisdom and the voice of folly. Wisdom has built her house, a house with 7 pillars, which lets the reader know that it's a grand house, isn't it? With pillars symbolizing the wealth and complete as well, as 7 in Proverbs has to do with perfection. This house and building language is very symbolic, as Bruce Waltke states that this language speaks of creating, bringing into an existence, and is connected with the idea of a functioning creative power. Now, Folly is contrasted as having not built her house, as Folly has really no creative power, as the food she offers, is not made by her, but is stolen. One key way to distinguish between the way of wisdom in life and the way of folly is to realize that only wisdom has creative power, and everything folly offers in this life is taken from wisdom. Consider human sexuality. God created human sexuality and pleasure. Folly has no power to create anything, but instead distorts what God in His wisdom has created as good, to mislead people into believing that the way of folly is better than the way of wisdom of the Creator. Folly then wants us to believe that God's holding back on you, and He doesn't want you to experience joy in life and satisfaction. A second distinguishing factor that separates wisdom from folly is that wisdom has labored in love to produce a meal of meat and mix some wine with probably spices to add flavor. In contrast, folly has stolen her meal, not making anything, saying her stolen meal is really what is delicious and sweet to our soul's taste. The meal of wisdom nourishes us with life and creative power, just like the Creator. The way of wisdom is a way of creativity, industry, and innovation. But it's not always the easier path. Creativity, industry, and innovation take a lot of effort, whereas folly tempts us to take the easy path, eating off of someone else's effort. It's like sitting in the stands at a professional sporting event and cheering when our team wins, as if we were on the field with them, while all the time we live off their glory and their hard preparation and effort as if we had won. The way of wisdom isn't really about self-satisfaction alone, but our participating in God's creative power to make the world a better place. Another example I thought of would be working all day to prepare a feast for family and friends. We might be very tired from all the preparation, but the joy of a wonderful meal shared by many is worth it. Compare that to a folly's way of going to the most expensive restaurant, knowing for having the best food, and eating food out of the dumpster, or stealing someone else's takeout, and serving it to your friends and family as if you have made it. The text continues to illuminate the way of wisdom as it speaks of sending out servants to invite us to the feast. Wisdom, the way of wisdom is working hard and is disciplined to make sure that all the details are prepared down even to the invitations. Folly is, of course, contrasted in verse 13 as undisciplined, doing the least work as possible, and sits at the door of her house trying to seduce people to her meal. Now, discipline, of course, is not a very popular word anymore in our culture, is it? It is that connotations associated with it of harsh punishment that many of us cringe at when we think about ourselves, but quickly nod our head in agreement about how everybody else should be more disciplined. In this chapter, though, I want you to really see discipline as applying oneself to gaining and growing in knowledge. It's that commitment to that. Being dedicated and growing and understanding in life more and more. As verse 9 says, instruct a wise person, and they will be wiser still. Teach a righteous person, and he will add to his learning. Verse 10 leaves us little doubt about what that source of wisdom is, so that we don't kind of generalize wisdom as just some vague knowledge. The fear of the Lord is holy awe and glowing love, as we've been studying, of the Lord is the true path of wisdom in life. A path of wisdom always leads none other to new and greater understanding of who God is and how He's created us to live. Folly is very undisciplined about growing in any knowledge of God, and in fact is viewed as a mocker of a disciplined life to seeking God. One way to uncover folly's approach to living in life are to expose the lack of humility of where people think that they have all the answers in life, and God, of course, is taken out of the picture. These approaches in life tend to be very human-focused, as if we have all the knowledge within us, or God's insights are not needed, as we have progressed now to better ways of living. Remember Paul's words, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Folly's approach to living of that verse takes out two key words, through Christ, and simply reads, I can do all things because of my own strength within me. Good news. The way of wisdom comes with a promise to lead us to life. Now, life in Proverbs has a sense of inner contentment, that my life has a purpose beyond anything of my own making or doing. Wisdom raises us to a quality of life that connects with God. The way of folly promises a lot, sweet delicacies, but doesn't tell you the consequences of following her. Her way leads to death within us. Death in the sense that we miss out on that inner life that we could live with God's power and His wisdom in our hearts. Paul speaks of the consequences of a sinful life as he states the wages, the earnings, where it leads of sin is death. But the gift of God is something we could never achieve on our own, is eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord. Lastly, our New Testament part of responsive reading. Did you catch that? Jesus points to the way of wisdom is following Him and putting His teaching into practice in life. The many distractions and temptations of folly are fun at first, but when the storms of life, Jesus says, when they hit hard, the way of folly is like sinking sand. Jesus offers a banquet of wisdom in Himself and teaches us how to weather the storms firm upon Him. As the hymn states, on Christ the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. All other ground is sinking sand. Closing, imagine Christ calling us from the highest point of our city, just like wind in His hair. He's calling us. He's calling us with an invitation to His meal of wisdom, how to live. God offers us a choice meal which He has prepared, where we can grow in God's image of creativity, a disciplined journey where we can find a purpose in our lives that we could never achieve on our own. As we focus on Christ calling us to His banquet, this is what helps us Avoid the temptation of folly's call. May we remember that image of Christ calling us and putting his teaching into practice is the rock that will always protect us from the storms of life. Let us pray together. Christ, you are the solid rock on which we stand. All other ground is sinking sand. Lord, we want to follow in the way of wisdom, the way that points us closer to you and gives us more understanding of who you are and how we are to live in this world. Will you help us? In your word in James, you say if anyone lacks wisdom, they should ask. Lord, there's people in our church that are going through some very tough times. They're very confused at what your plan is for their lives. They're very confused with the sicknesses they're dealing with and the heartaches of wondering what the future holds. Lord, may your peace and wisdom come into them now. May they know that you are calling out to them. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. That you are a God who calls us to live in the way of wisdom. Lord, we live in a world where many of our leaders are seen to be following the way of folly. We pray for the leadership of Canada and of Ingersoll and Ontario, that they will learn and follow the way of wisdom, a way that is good for all. Lord, give us as a church as well the way of wisdom. Help us to not be self-indulgent, but to live for the good of others here at St. Paul's, to love each other, to walk with each other, to help each other hear the call of Christ in our lives. Lead and guide us in this way, the way of wisdom, through the power of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.